Hey y'all, it's Chrissy Cook from Teadoddles. Today I'm going to do a little tutorial over doing the puff stitch. I believe I called it a bobble stitch in my podcast, but it's actually the puff stitch. There's a difference between the two. A bobble stitch would involve making several double crochets or starting half of them in a row and then connecting them at the top. Whereas a puff stitch is just a bunch of yarn overs basically to give you that you pull up in a longer loop to give you this nice puff. I'm just gonna give you some tips on getting through all those loops and how to get a nicer puff. I'm in the progress of making another one of my crocheted face cloths, which I released a pattern for on the blog Monday. I will put that link down below. So let's just begin. Already chained one, and I'm turning. And for this particular pattern, I need to chain 4, 2, 3, 4. So now I am at the puff stitch. And to start the puff stitch, I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch. And then I'm going to pull up the first loop. What you want to do, you can see that, oh, my loop's come off. I've pulled up my loop to meet the top of the stitch. So I pulled the loop up. It's not just a regular stitch. I have to pull the loop up. So I try to keep this pushed back to keep it from falling off the end of the hook, first of all, because I have several of these to do. So I'm going to wrap, insert, pull up. And I have to do this a total of 5 times. So I've done it 1, 2. So then 3. And you want to make sure each time you're pulling that loop up to match your other loops. Okay? Because it can, with this stitch, have a tendency to get shorter as you go down. So make sure you're really pulling that back up each time. And I always keep my finger on the stitches I've done to help hold them on the hook. So that was, let's see, I've done 1, 2, 3. So then I'll do, this is 4. I'm going to just kind of push that hook back and forth to make sure I'm pulling up enough of the loop. This was the last one, which is 5. So now I have all of my stitches, all of my loops on here. There should be 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So another thing I do, they can get really bunched up when you do this. So I like to kind of flatten them out like this. Makes it a little easier to get that last loop through. So then I'll yarn over, and if you keep your hook sideways like this, it's probably going to catch on this first loop. So I turn it so that the hook faces down, and it helps to keep tension on the yarn with your other finger when you do this. However you do that, to keep it this from coming off the hook as you pull through. So I turn it so that the hook faces down towards the bottom of the loops, and then it's easier to pull through all those loops, right? And then some puff stitches I've noticed don't do this. They'll go right to the next stitch, but I always just chain 1, or you can call it a slip stitch, however you want to, at the top of it. It helps hold that in real nice. And then for this pattern, I'm going to go to the next stitch and do a single crochet, and then it's time for my next puff stitch. So my next puff stitch, yarn over, insert the hook, pull up that loop, yarn over, That's number 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I'm going to flatten these stitches out, turn my hook down, and it will sometimes still try to get caught. So when it does that, I try to take the hook back out and just adjust it a little more to get these stitches opened up more inside the loops. This one's really, there we go. Okay. Had a little interruption from my dog there, but we've made the second bobble. So now it's time to go single crochet and single crochet. And this pattern has 5 bobbles on each bobbles. I'm calling it bobble again. 5 puff stitches on each row, not a bobble stitch, puff stitch. So we'll yarn over, insert our hook, pulling it up to get a nice loop. Yarn over, that's number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. So there's my 5 loops, my 5 yarn overs. I'm going to flatten that out, and hopefully this one pulls through really nice. It did. There's our chain 1, single crochet, single crochet. We'll do 2 more bobbles. Yeah. So here we go. Pull the loop up, 2, 3, 4, 5, pull it through, chain, 2 more single crochets, 1, 2, then 1 more bobble, or 1 more puff stitch. Man, I just want to call that a bobble, don't I? It's a puff stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there we go. Let's get those stitches nice and loose. Pull it through, chain 1, single crochet, single crochet. Okay? So what this does, you'll notice it looks kind of flat on the back, because this is, most bobbles are worked where the bobble pokes out the front, or the puff stitch, my goodness, the puff stitch puffs out the front. So that's where the poof is. And then the back is flat. So I just wanted to go over when you do stitches over the top of a puff stitch. I'm going to chain 1, because now this has a row of single crochet. So we do single crochet, 1, 2, and then if you look at the top of the puff stitch, because we did a chain 1, there's a stitch and a stitch. But you don't want to put a single crochet in both of those stitches. You're going to put a single crochet in this one that is at the very center of all of those loops you made the puff stitch with. So you want to insert your hook there and make the single crochet. And then you're going to skip that little chain 1 that you made and go to the next single crochet and single crochet in there. Single crochet 2, and then right in the top of the puff stitch, skip in that chain 1 and then into the next single crochet. 2 single crochets, 1 in the top of the puff stitch. Because that can be confusing sometimes when you put stitches back over the top as to which stitch to go into. But you want to go into the loop that's made right on top of the puff stitch. Because see, this is actually that chain 1 that we did to close it. And we don't want to stitch in that because that will give us too many stitches across the top. Alright, right in the top of the puff. Set it right that time, yay! And then 1, 2, 3, 4 to finish out that row. So, that is the front of my work with all my nice puff stitches. Gives a really nice little bumpy texture. And then the back of it is nice and flat. And as I said, this is my crocheted face cloth pattern, which is on the blog. I'll put the link down below if you'd like to make it. It's just got a couple more rows. This is about a 4-inch square when it's done. And then I do a reverse single crochet, or crab stitch as some call it, around the edge. It gives it a nice little ribbed texture. It will look like this when you're finished. Since I was doing the tutorial on a puff stitch, I thought I'd make a little pattern so you can practice your puff stitch. So this is the finished little washcloth. It's just a little, it's only about 4x4. It's good to wipe your face with, wash your face with, or something that's very soft. This is Knit Picks Comfy Sport, which is a 75% cotton, 25% acrylic blend, but it's very soft, and that makes it more washable. It doesn't shrink as much with the little bit of acrylic in it. This is a number 2 sport weight, which is really nice for this cloth to get more detail. So you can make these with a different weight yarn and a different size hook, but you will have a bigger cloth. So unless you change the number of stitches in the row. And this is a 3.5 millimeter hook I'm using. Trying to get in the screen. And so yeah, this is a great way to practice that puff stitch so you can get it down and get your stitches looking nice. And they make great little gifts too. Alright, I hope y'all enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Think about subscribing, and I will see y'all next time.